Welcome back, everyone. If you watched my previous video that kicked off my review of the book Courtiers by Valentine, I talked about the structure of the institution, aka firm, and the senior people that helped the royal family in supporting the monarch to carry out and fulfill its committed duties to the country. The monarchy is an example of an organization that has a global brand. And in order for it to be successful in its objectives, like minded people have to work together. This is no different to any other successful business that has lasted throughout generations. Before we talk about some of these courtiers and the dynamics with the royal family, I would like to talk about this comment that was left on yesterday's video by one of my viewers. And it says, as a Canadian, I hope to see the end of the monarchy in Canada upon the death of the Queen. Her Majesty was truly exceptional, and it would been a wonderful end to the royals. I don't respect Charles. I see him as too political and a wimpy soy man. I was horrendous offended by recent remarks of William on the subject of climate change and putting words in the mouth of our dead queen. The queen was able to speak for herself, and is highly inappropriate for him to claim what the queen might have said. I don't like any of them except Princess Anne. Well, thank you for leaving that comment, and this is not meant to shame anyone. I just want to point out the fact that there are many people who share this sentiment of hoping that the monarchy will end. And we all know that Meghan Markle is part of the anti abolish the monarchy movement, in which she is supporting and funding people to directly go out and harass others that are in support of this monarchy, called the Sussex Squad. I must preface that what I'm about to say is not meant to cheapen the royal brand, but instead help us understand the importance. The monarch is a symbol of Britain's identity. It's in the fabric of the culture and the country. So, for instance, you look at the role that the monarchy plays in this apolitical perspective, it is on behalf of people where there is a figurehead who can speak to everyone in times of congratulations or in times of tragedy. They are the ones that the people can look to without any sort of political agenda. The monarchy is also Britain's symbol of continuity and stability. No country is perfect, okay, but I think it's awesome that Britain has a figurehead for its people that acts like a cheerleader for hope and possibilities for the future. And we cannot forget that the monarch's principal purpose is on behalf of the nation, and its responsibility is to recognize society's achievement and success with impartiality and fairness. And I'll be honest, the US cannot do any of these three without being politically divided or pushing a political agenda. So now I'm going to ask Canada and the UK, what if tomorrow the monarchy ended? The Constitution, both Canada and the UK and all the other countries that are being governed, are based on unwritten customs and traditions. So you end the monarchy, you get rid of that. Then you also have to understand that the monarch and the crown represents the national unity and your identity. So now you're gone with that. Then, if you get rid of the monarchy, then you have to amend your constitution. And with so many different opinions, does anyone believe that would be easy? Already, the word democracy is slowly shifting into favoring only the elites. Well, at least in the US Constitution, what we're seeing here is our First Amendment rights are no longer being respected. You have free speech as long as it's following the political party of our current administration. So let's say you wake up tomorrow, Canada or the UK, and there's no more monarchy. First and foremost, your nation's identity is gone because the royal family and its principles are embedded within the fabric of British culture of who you are. All right, so that happens too. Next, you become a republic just like the United States. Do you honestly want your country to be like the US, where the bodies of government can't get anything done because there are conflicting opinions and beliefs on how the taxpayer money should be spent, thus resulting in the divisiveness and breakdown in the society that we're seeing today in this country? Just to let you know, crime is up, unemployment is up, and we're in an economic free fall, and our government refused to be honest with the public because they don't want it to affect the midterm elections. America's identity at this moment, in my opinion, is lost as a result of morality and ethics no longer appearing to matter. The monarchy exists because it is the country's moral compass, identity. The family is there as the nation's living, breathing reminder of its morality and ethics. They are setting the example of putting into action a life of service that is selfless, helping one another. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but what are the negative aspects of the family being there and doing what they're doing now? King Charles, before he became king, had pseudo political views, and many of you think he's part of this great reset, which I can't comment on, but he is now king. And if he's promising to be and remain apolitical, then I think people need to give him a chance so he can do his job. And I'm sure many of you are saying, well, it's costing the taxpayer money. Well, yeah, it's costing the taxpayer money, but let's think about it. It costs each taxpayer $2 each. So this family can carry out its duties on behalf of the nation, considering that they bring in billions each year to the UK and contribute to the economy by generating revenue and providing jobs. If you get rid of the monarchy, then just based on pure economics, the people of the UK would lose more than $2 per year. I think people can sacrifice the cost of one candy bar or coffee if it means this family will help many others with the charity programs they advocate for and governmental support in supporting the people. They could call it a day and be like every other billionaire. They have their own money. They don't need to be doing this. So the return on investment is far greater than the expenditure of government funds to carry out duties to benefit the people of the country. I think the people of the UK have a tremendous asset in the monarchy because you have a governing body that has soft power, that doesn't have to be political and take positions in order to get things done for the people. You don't have to like King Charles as a person. Just make sure that he does what he's supposed to be doing as the monarch and be done with it. Don't take it personal. Which is a great segue to talk about the people who are the trusted advisors of the monarch. In chapter 2 of Valentine Lowe's book, he cites Harold Lasky, the political theorist and economist, and he mentions that he had a go at defining the job in 1942 in a review of a biography of Henry Ponsonby, Queen Victoria's private secretary. The private secretary's role, he said, was one of dignified slavery. One should know how to intrude without seeming intrusive, should know how to steer one's way between anxious politicians and jealous courtiers, and must be able to carry the burden of the sovereign's mistakes. Lasky wrote, receiving 1,000 secrets, he must discriminate between what may emerge and what shall remain obscure. The royal secretary walks on a tight rope below which he is never unaware that an abyss is yawning. If the monarch is lazy, like Edward VII, his very presence may almost become an error of judgment. If the monarch is hardworking, like Queen Victoria, all his tact and discretion are required to keep firmly drawn the possible lines of working relations in a constitutional system. What he says next, I think, is the most important. He says, above all, Lasky explained, a private secretary should put aside their personal views. A private secretary to the monarch who pushed his ideas might easily precipitate a crisis. He must be pretty nearly selfless. Once private ambition begins to color his horizons, his usefulness is over. In any organization, it's just natural for people to have some kind of an agenda. I'm not saying that everyone has an evil agenda, but people have agendas and a purpose as to why they're doing the work that they're doing. For many, a job can be a means to an end to support a family. For some, a certain job and maneuvering and having an agenda could mean advancing in career. For others, it could be very well for money and power. So the idea of giving your entire self as a private secretary to the monarch and serving, it may start out that way in the beginning, but it's not a long-term solution because at the end of the day, people have needs as well. And when you factor in ego and wants and desires, look, we all have one life to live, and certain motivations can play into this and why this job can get clouded. One of the examples demonstrating this in the book was talking about Michael Fawcett. Now, you might remember, but Fawcett made the news in 2021 for the Cash for Honor scandal. No lie, but I think Meghan Markle and this guy are two peas in a pod. Valentine Lowe writes, Michael Fawcett was the lowly footman who rose to become an indispensable part of the Prince of Wales' life. As Charles famously said, I can manage without just about anyone except for Michael. Such was Fawcett's power and influence that in 2017, a newspaper article predicted that when Charles became king, it would be Fawcett who would be master of the household, in charge of all palace entertaining, although by then he would probably be Sir Michael Fawcett. Slowly and surely, Michael found his way being notorious as the servant who would do anything for his boss. He showed himself having a natural flair for entertainment, and Fawcett took control of Charles' social engagements and would delight the prince with his stylish table decorations and dinner parties. So then he gets a promotion to being a personal assistant. So what does he start doing? He starts dressing like Charles. And then he starts taking on character traits of Charles. Does that remind you of somebody? Yes. As he became ever more powerful, he gave Charles his utter loyalty and devotion. Sounds similar to what Markle did with her initial entrance into the family, but he did not waste his charm on other, more junior employees, and many found him domineering. You'd think we were talking about Markle, right? In 1998, three key members of staff went to the prince to complain about Fawcett's overbearing and bullying manner. Fawcett offered his resignation, leaving Charles bereft until Camilla stepped in and persuaded Charles to refuse to accept his resignation. Now, once again, in my eyes, reading this, it appears that the monarchy/HR department failed because they allowed to keep a person who was abusing other employees, just like the way that Meghan Markle was abusing employees, and allowed him to continue on and be in the environment, which I think is wrong. So probably Markle saw this same kind of manipulation, exactly what Fawcett was doing, and weaseling her way in. 5 years later, Fawcett was in hot water once more when an internal report by Michael Peet identified mismanagement in Charles's household. Peet's report found that Fawcett had broken regulations by accepting presents from suppliers, including a 3,000-pound club membership and a Rolex watch. Although the report also found that he sold official gifts for cash, a practice that earned him the nickname of Fawcett the Fence, he was cleared of any wrongdoing. Once more, Fawcett offered his resignation. This time it was accepted. But Fawcett was not gone for good, with his departure softened by a 500,000 pound of severance pay. Fawcett founded Premier Mode, an events company that would exploit his talent for entertaining. And who was the principal client? It was the Prince of Wales. It's interesting that Valentine Lowe mentions that when Michael Fawcett was holding events and leading up to Charles's 70th birthday, he held an event for the Dumfries House Trust in which he invited a group of journalists to take a look at the heritage-led regeneration. And when I read this, I thought to myself, oh my God, is this where Meghan Markle got the idea to tell Oprah Winfrey that the palace hosts these parties with journalists to sort of get them on their side. Meghan could not come up with that idea on her own. And it just so happened that Harry ends up throwing his father under the bus, exposing him and Michael Fawcett about this cash for honors and the emails and exchanges that he had with the sheik. I believe that Meghan watched this guy in action. Not only was he a bully, but he was arrogant and abrasive. And the people that worked around him, some could say that a lot of it was jealousy, but for the most part, he was aggressive and just was not a nice person. However, Michael Fawcett and the prince had an unspoken bond of trust and respect. And from what I'm gathering from this book is that King Charles doesn't really have the best judge of character people. I do think Charles is a good person. However, I think he does let people influence him a little bit too much. Maybe because he finds interesting things about them. I think there was a point where he saw Meghan Markle as interesting and this tungsten woman, but hopefully now he realizes and sees what a manipulative evil witch she is. What I was surprised to read was that Meghan Markle wasn't the only demanding royal that was treating the staff with unreasonable requests and behaviors. King Charles had a reputation for being punctuated by rows and temper tantrums, resignations, and sackings. Not all royal households were filled with such tumult. It is said in the book that he has gone through 10 private secretaries. Seen here in this picture is the retired comptroller in the Lord Chamberlain's office, Lieutenant Colonel Sir Malcolm Ross. And when he retired in 2006, Prince Charles had asked him to come to Clarence House and be the master of the household. He agreed, and later he disclosed to Charles' biographer that it was a complete shock to his system, and that when he was working for the Queen, he had 3 calls from the Queen outside working hours in the 18 years that he served there, and then he had 6 to 8 of them from the Prince of Wales on the first weekend. And it says here that Charles's strength was his furious pursuit of ideas. The byproduct was his explosive displays of temper when his orders were not carried out immediately. I was called names I hadn't heard since my early days in the army, said Ross. I think it's important that we call out bad behavior, regardless if it's Meghan Markle or not. When you see it, you need to call out to it. Reading this is no different in my eyes to the way that Meghan Markle treated her staff. So if she was calling them frequently and throwing temper tantrums and whether or not she was swearing or what have you, is no different to the behavior of King Charles. It did say in the book that King Charles had gone through 10 private secretaries throughout his service to the monarchy. Just because you're the queen's son and the heir to the throne doesn't give you a pass to treat people like dirt. And I think we see there's a bit of a double standard. It could be argued that since King Charles was the heir to the throne and his mother is who she was, that this type of behavior is okay and is allowed. And that because Meghan Markle is an outsider and she was in the monarchy for 2 seconds, that she didn't have the respect, which I don't think she did have the respect. But either way, neither person should treat people like this. And that's just my opinion. What do you think? The office politics and the dynamics in this organization is definitely different, but at the same time, it's not like in any other organization where there is a competitive sort of environment for the boss's ear. At the end of the day, you have to like who you work with. Otherwise, it could be miserable to do whatever job that you're in. I guess that people did like King Charles. People did like the Queen. People did like Prince Andrew. But people didn't like Meghan Markle. And it was not because of her skin color, but it had everything to do with not being a team player. She was not like minded, nor did she respect or be committed to achieving the objective and the actual mission of the organization that she was working for. Sorry, it wasn't a career match. Move on, Megan. Find something else. I don't know, like sales. What do you guys think? Comment below. I'll be back soon with another video. Until then, bye!
Such a fraud.